From Coffee Plant to Being Awake and the Effects of Caffeine on Metabolism by Kelsey Short. Coffee is part of the genus Coffea, which has over 500 genera and 6,000 species. It is estimated that there are anywhere from 25 to 100 species of coffee plants. In commercially grown coffee, only two main species are grown, Arabica and Robusta. Arabica accounts for around 70% of the world's coffee and has less caffeine than Robusta. Robusta contains 50 to 60% more caffeine than Arabica coffee. Coffee beans are actually seeds, and when they are unprocessed, they can be planted to grow into new coffee trees. The trees can grow over 30 feet tall, but are pruned short to conserve energy and allow for a bigger harvest. The leaves are usually dark green and waxy with flowers that turn into fruit that are often called coffee cherries. Coffee trees take about 5 years to mature to full fruit production. They can live up to 100 years, but are most productive between 7 and 20 years old. The average tree produces about 10 pounds of coffee cherry per year, or about 2 pounds of green beans. Coffee only grows in the area close to the equator between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn. It also requires very rich soil and mild temperatures. They also need about 60 inches of rainfall per year. The coffee cherry contains two coffee beans called endosperm. They are surrounded by several layers of protection within the fruit. 5% of coffee cherries harvested only have one bean that is called a pewberry. Some people believe that they are sweeter. These are often sorted out and sold in special batches. In most countries, coffee is picked by hand due to the landscape. Two methods are used, strip picking and selective picking. In strip picking, all of the cherries are stripped one branch at a time. In selective picking, only the ripe cherries are harvested by hand, and the trees are checked every 10 days for new ripe berries. This is extremely labor-intensive and therefore very expensive, but it allows for the best quality coffee. Usually this is reserved for the best quality Arabica beans. Pickers average 100 to 200 pounds of coffee cherries a day, which produces about 20 to 40 pounds of coffee beans. After picking, processing must occur quickly before the fruit spoils. Two methods of processing are used, the dry method and the wet method. In the dry method, the cherries are spread out to dry in the sun and are raked to turn them over throughout the day. To prevent moisture, they are covered at night or during rain. They are finished when their moisture content is 11%. In the wet method, the pulp and skin are separated from the beans. The beans are then sorted by weight and size, then transferred to fermentation tanks where they stay for 12 to 48 hours until the parenchyma is broken down by naturally occurring enzymes. The beans are then rinsed and ready for drying in the sun until they reach 11% moisture content. The beans are then stripped of their parchment layer called the endocarp and sometimes polished. Then they are graded and sorted by size and weight, and any defective beans are sorted out. Before use, the beans need to be roasted at 550 degrees Fahrenheit, while they are being continuously stirred until the beans reach 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and then they are immediately cooled by either air or water. Then the coffee is ground and packaged for consumption. Caffeine is a compound found in over 60 plant species, most commonly coffee. A typical cup contains 75 to 100 milligrams of caffeine. It is typically considered safe to ingest up to 400 milligrams per day, which equals about 5 cups of coffee. Coffee is the main source of caffeine for 70% of adult caffeine consumers. It takes about 45 minutes for caffeine to be absorbed after oral ingestion. Peak plasma concentration takes anywhere from 15 to 120 minutes to occur. Caffeine has a half-life of about 4 hours. The research on how much caffeine increases metabolic rate varies between studies, likely due to the body mass of subjects and the range of time when peak concentration occurs. Caffeine works by stimulating the nervous system, which leads to an increase in epinephrine in the blood, which signals a breakdown of fat cells. caffeine can increase resting metabolic rate by 3 to 11%. It can increase fat burning by as much as 29% in lean individuals, but only 10% in those who are obese. In the liver, caffeine undergoes successive demethylations and C8 oxidation, as shown in the figure. CYP1A2 is only found in the liver, and it represents 15% of cytochrome P450 enzymes in the liver and is responsible for more than 90% of caffeine metabolism. CYP1A2 is responsible for most of the biochemical reactions of caffeine and its metabolites. Age, sex, and obesity do not affect the clearance of caffeine. The distribution is increased by 60% in obese subjects. Liver disease affects the clearance of caffeine in correlation to the severity of the disease. Smoking stimulates caffeine clearance and nearly doubles the rate of metabolism.